In this video, we're going to look at solving quadratic equations by factoring. First, let's make sure that we understand the quadratic equation. A quadratic equation in X is an equation that can be written in the general form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are all real numbers, and of course a is not 0. I have to have the x squared term to have a quadratic equation. A quadratic equation in X is also called a second-degree polynomial equation in X. To solve by factoring, I need a property that we call the zero product property. And the zero product property is like this. If the product of two algebraic expressions is 0, then at least one of those factors is equal to 0. In other words, if a times b is 0, then either a is 0 or b is 0. Again, the reasoning for this is the fact that the only way you can get 0 for the answer of a multiplication problem is for one of those factors to be 0. What I'm giving you here is an algorithm for those of you who need the help in getting started on solving quadratic equations. As you develop mathematically, as you get all this experience under your wings, you may slightly change up a thing or two here or there and find another way that works for you. But this is a general algorithm that works. In order to solve a quadratic equation, first put it in general form, that is, set it equal to 0. Then factor it completely. Apply the zero product principle by setting each of those factors you found in step 1 equal to 0. For step 3, take all of those equations you found in step 2 and solve them. And then for step 4, again, check your answers. So for example, solve this quadratic equation, 2x squared plus x equals 1. Now, first of all, I know it's quadratic because it's got an x squared, so that's why I'm using the algorithm I'm going to use. Step number 1 said put it in general form, that is, set it equal to 0. Then factor completely. Well, the greatest common factor is 1. For those who need it, I'm going to factor by tic-tac-toe again. And then I'm going to show you a little something that I want you to start trying. The quadratic term is 2x squared. Constant term, -1. Multiply them together, -2x squared. Bust up the variable. Write that linear term complete with his sign, and I'm going to express my 1. Then the 3 games. Now, guys, this is where I want to detour just a little bit and tell you some of you need to start trying to do this in your head, especially on these simpler problems like this. I know the factors of 2 are what I'm looking for because 2 is right up here in the top. I'm looking for factors of 2. 1 times 2, that's it. Okay? Then I play the sign game. Now, notice as always, the sign up here that tells me same or different is the one in front of the constant. So I know I want different signs, even just looking at the equation instead of having to draw the chart. Okay? So I want different signs with the big guy being positive. And different signs you subtract and keep the sign on the larger number. So my larger number is going to be positive. My smaller number is going to be negative. And sure enough, I can add these two numbers together to get the positive 1. So it is factorable. -1 and positive 2 are my factors. I multiply up. 2 times -1 is 2. I add down. -1 plus 2 is positive 1. It's going to work. In the left-hand column, my common factors, x and 2x, and they multiply up. And then multiply from left to right. 1 times -1 is -1. 2 times 1 is 2. And when I multiply up that middle column, I know it worked. Now, the idea, let me finish this first. Read my diagonals, x plus 1, and this diagonal must be 2x minus 1. Now, before I write it over here, I want to talk to you a second about doing some of this, starting to do this mentally instead of writing it all out on paper. I know this is going to be factors of 2, which are 1 and 2. Different signs, which means I subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. 2 minus 1 is 1, so it's going to work. Now, the only way I can get a 2 as a lead coefficient is one of those x's has to be 2. So I've got 2x and x. My only options for 1 are 1 and 1. The sign game is the only thing I have to worry about, and the deal is this is the sign on the larger product. The larger product, there's 1, there's 2, this is my larger product. Notice I got the exact same thing, but this way I did it in my head. Eventually, if you'll practice it, that will become the quickest way. Okay, so anyway, I have factored and brought down my equal 0, so my next step is to set each one of those factors equal to 0. Since they say minus 1, I say plus 1. I'm going to stop writing that step out. Since they said times 2, I say divided by 2. Since they said plus 1, I say minus 1. I believe I've got my 2 answers, negative 1 and positive 1/2. Okay? Now, I do need to check those if I have time, and I do have time right now, so I'm going to check them real quick like. 2 times negative 1 squared is positive 1, plus negative 1 equals 1. 2 plus negative 1 equals 1. I'm going to stop right there because I think we can all see that's going to work. 2 times 1/2 squared is 1/4, plus 1/2 better equal 1. 2 times 1/4 is 2/4, which is 1/2. And I know that 1/2 plus 1/2 does equal 1, so I know I got it right. One last example of solving by factoring. Again, start off by setting it equal to 0. Since it's minus 24 on the right, it's plus 24 on the left. Now, I'm going to factor this one mentally. I'm going to show you a little bit of scratch work over here on the left. I know that when I multiply 1 times 24, that upper right corner is going to be 24. So it's factors of 24 I want. Now, some of you may need to do some scratch work here and actually list them all out. Others of you who developed a good number sense in elementary and middle school, you may not have to. But I'm going to do them real quickly. And 4 times 6. 5 won't go, and 6 is already there. Now I'm going to play the sign game again. This is why I say you could do this one mentally. Both guys, see that sign right there? That means same. Both guys are positive, so they're just like this. So my factor pair is going to add together to give me an 11. The only possibility is 3 and 8. So I think that's going to be x plus 3 and x plus 8. Do a quick check on that, especially if I'm not used to factoring in my head. First, x squared, outer 8x, inner 3x for a total of 11x, and last is 24, so it checks. So I'm ready to move on and set each factor equal to 0 because I've got 2 guys multiplied together to give me 0, so one of those 2 guys has got to be 0. So either it's x plus 3 or x plus 8. Since they said plus 3, I say minus 3. Since they said plus 8, I say minus 8. So I have 2 possibilities. I'm going to put them in numerical order from least to greatest. Negative 8, negative 3. Do you have to put them in numerical order? No, it's just kind of like we shouldn't say ain't either. All right, so that's it for solving by factoring.